get right into the subject for today. As we all know, the structure and the framework for this particular series of lecture has been threefold. One is personal transformation. We've established time and again that you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. And if it must be, it's up to you. So you are the most important critical success factor in the journey to financial freedom. When you are in proper shape, it will shape everything else we need to accomplish. All right. Then the second phase is income generation, planning, and application. And so while personal transformation is the foundation, the income generation, planning, and application is the pillars of financial freedom, is the pillars of wealth creation. Okay. And then the third phase is asset accumulation, optimization, and retention. And I can tell you categorically that is a full course. The truth is that we will not graduate from any of the need to learn in any of these three phases. But we've been on this journey for quite a bit. And today we'll be taking a step further, looking at creating wealth. Creating wealth. And I would not have done justice to this subject if I don't tell you a bit of my story. I would not have done justice to this subject without telling you a bit of my story. I grew up in an average family. My parents were neither rich nor poor. And that used to be my description, but I think I know a little better. I wouldn't even consider us middle class, growing up. But like I often say, I grew up with more memory of poverty, lack, and hardship. And I am the type of child that was born I wasn't born with silver spoon. I wouldn't even consider myself as someone who was born with a spoon at all. I understand the color of poverty, I understand the nature of poverty. And for those of us who have heard my story, you would know that somewhere along the line, I saw how some people were doing well. Right from primary school, it was always a tall order to have my school fees and that of my siblings get paid on time. And I used to wonder why other children's school fees were paid on time and why ours wasn't always paid on time. Why we always struggle. I could count the number of times, the number of years, growing up that I ate Christmas chicken, Christmas rice. I'm sure you know the taste of Christmas rice and Christmas chicken differ from other seasons. We've gone through all sorts, and I don't want to belabor that subject. But the key thing is for you to understand that, see, at some point I got tired of being tired. I got tired of poverty and lack. I figured that there must be something that some other people knew that my parents or my family didn't know. And now, by the way, it wasn't as though they weren't committed or weren't responsible parents. They were very dedicated, they loved their children, and they did the very best they could. But they also operated within the limits of information that was available to them. And so, as fate, as fortune, as providence would have it, I ran into the opportunity of meeting my very devout mentor, Dr. Lumide Emmanuel, at that year 2000. And that was the turnaround. That was the turning point for me. And it's a day I will forever remember. It was 20 February 2000. 20 February 2000. February 20, 2000. It was February 20, 2000. And that was the game changer for my life. And I realized, there were many things that my parents didn't understand. And those were the things that I began to practice. I sat under his teachings, read all of his books, listened to all his audio programs, attended some of his seminars, those that he hosted, especially outside the church. And even the ones he hosted in church, I was always present, just soaking it in and just learning and learning and learning. And of course, practicing as well. And truth is that by the time I was 27, I was already a multi-millionaire in Nigerian Naira. It means that the things that I learned actually worked. So what eventually happened was that I'd learned how to make money, but I didn't learn how to retain and sustain because I soon went broke. I realized that somewhere along the line, when you start to do well, especially if you live in Africa, you live and work in Africa, once you start to show sign of progress, everybody else just cling on you, and then they suck you dry until you cannot help yourself, neither can you help anybody else. But I didn't learn that part. And so even though I'd mastered how to create, I had mastered how to make money, I hadn't mastered how to how to retain and sustain it. And that's, launched me into another degree of financial crisis. And by this time I was already married. So I took some very, very tough decisions. I took some very, very major, I made some major moves. And today I'm grateful I made some of those tough decisions at the time. Otherwise, I probably would not even be here speaking to you or sharing some of the secrets and things I'm sharing. And so I'm someone who grew up from somewhere. I was a poor man, as in broke people called me broke, right? And like I often say humorously, if broke people call you broke, who are you? You are a broker. That was my state at the time. And I soon went broke. And I always say to people, it's better to be poor, hoping to be rich, than to be rich and be poor again. It's not something you want to experience. It was very, very devastating, So, but I began to implement certain things I wasn't implementing. At the time, I started making a lot of money. I made so much money, as in I made a lot of money, but I was just doling it out, just distributing and all of that. But I came to that understanding that you don't share your oil, you only share the light. You share the proceed from your oil. You share the light. The light is the proceed of your seed capital, right? You don't distribute seed. You distribute the fruit of that seed. And in fact, in some instances, you have to distribute the grandchildren or great-grandchildren, and you have to live off the great-grandchildren of your seed. All right. So I joked. I was reckless. I've always been a very shrewd person, but I was reckless in distributing my seed, and that was the missing link in the first time I became a multi-millionaire in Nigerian naira. Now, by the way, some of the things I've learned, I've turned them into a book, and I've written 13 books, so 7 of them already published, and the most recent of them, and I consider to be very, very valuable, is Financial Freedom Master Guide. So if you have a copy of that book, I would recommend you go over it again and again and again, and then you and your spouse, you and your colleagues at work. One of my mentees was still in my office yesterday and was telling me they've turned my book, they've turned it into a slide, and they use it for training their people. I said, that's good, that's fine, that's good. Just give credits. Just make sure there's credit there so that you don't get sued. Because I may not sue you, or my lawyers and my team can sue you if you are found. So bottom line, so what I want to share with you is about creating wealth. And this is so critical because we live in very precarious times. We live in a season where things are almost unpredictable, regardless of the location, regardless of the geography, regardless of your education. I've seen very educated, very intelligent people who are broke, who are suffering, financially, and they don't seem to have it together. So, and you never outgrow learning, right? I still sit down for lectures. I still go for training. I still go for courses. I still invest heavily, right? Even though I'm still teaching other people. Like I always say to people, I say the tanker that supplies fuel also requires fuel itself. And so some of the things I'm going to share were born out of personal experiences, okay? I love this quote by Jim Rohn, and it says, to become financially free, he said, you must turn a part of your income into capital. You must turn a part, in order to be financially free, as many of us already know, financial freedom is that point in your life where the proceeds from your asset and investment is not only capable of meeting your personal and family needs, but is also able to extend goodness and kindness to others. At this point in your life, you're no longer working for necessity. You are just working for fun. You are working for fulfillment, right? And everyone can accomplish and achieve that in their lifetime. But not everybody will ever achieve it, because not everybody will pay the price. Not everybody will be disciplined enough to do what is needful. And not everybody will be willing to take the risk they have to take to get to that point in their life. So Jim Rohn says to be financially free, you must turn a part of your income into capital. All right? So the capital there is seed. Is seed. You don't joke, we don't trade with your seed. You don't joke with your seed. You don't gamble with your seed. You don't give your seed. Okay? All right. Yeah, there's a part of your seed you should give. Don't get it twisted. But again, understand where we're going. He said, turn it into capital, turn income to capital. Then he said, turn capital into enterprise. In other words, start a business or own a part of a business, even if you're not the one who run it. Like I've said time and again, you can own a business and not necessarily run it, and you can run a business without necessarily owning it. All right. And then you can, of course, own the business and run the business as well. So he says, turn that capital into enterprise. And then he said, turn the enterprise into profits. Turn the enterprise into profit and turn the profit into investment. In other words, don't just invest the money. Because you see, enterprise has the propensity to multiply your seed much more than any other avenue. The fastest way, in my opinion, and we're going to touch on that in the course of this particular segment. Not today, but clearly it's going to be over the next 3 or 4 weeks, okay? We're going to look at this creating wealth of a subject and look at it in depth. And we'll be taking questions. And then I hope that by the time we're done in this particular series of lecture this month, I am very convinced that you will have drawn significant value. And not only that, you'll be propelled to take decisive action that will move you in the direction of financial freedom. Okay, so he said, turn enterprise into profit, or turn profit into investment, then turn investment into financial freedom. So there's only one way, we said that already, there's only one way by which we can multiply money, and it's through investment. But he suggests, and according to Jim Rohn, he suggests that you turn your income, so when you make money, he said, turn it into a capital. Then he said, turn capital into enterprise. He said, turn enterprise into profits, profits into investment, and then of course investment will eventually land you financial freedom. Maybe in subsequent discussions, when we get into the third phase, I'm going to be talking to you about trust. I'm going to be talking to you about how to, avoid taxes. I'm going to talk to you about writing your will, insurance, and a host of other things, and establishing legacies. We'll be talking more about retention at that phase. But let's dwell more on these right now. Okay, so there are, creating wealth, from my experience and from the studies I've done, is as simple as ABC. If you can be, and forgive me for lack of a better word, if you can be silly enough, if you can be stupid enough to embrace the simplicity of wealth creation, you won't have any problem. So wealth creation is not as complex as most people think. It's so simple. It's as simple as ABC. So follow this very carefully. So there are the ABC of wealth creation are as follows. Number one is financial intelligence. Financial intelligence. If you can still hear me loud and clear, please type 20. Type 20 if you can still hear me loud and clear. Financial intelligence. B is financial planning. C is financial discipline. A, financial intelligence. B, financial planning. C is financial discipline. So today I'll talk more on financial intelligence. I'll focus more on financial intelligence. I must tell you this. Financial intelligence is the understanding of how money works. It's the interpretation of bank statements, financial statements, the understanding and interpretation of cash flow, how money flows, where money hides, how the new rules of money, you are able to interpret the difference between asset and liability. You understand the difference between cash flow and profit. You understand the difference between inflation and deflation. You understand the difference between simple interest and compound interest. You understand risk and returns. You understand the difference between active and passive income. You understand the difference between salary and income and what have you. You understand the difference between good and bad debts. Okay, that's what financial intelligence essentially helps you to understand. Okay, and these are the critical components of wealth creation. So if you want to create wealth, you must understand, you must have a good grasp of money lingua. Okay, this is so important. Financial intelligence is also understanding the true nature of money. That money is called currency because it flows. It's not static, and it flows from the hand. It flows from the hands of fools to the hands of the wise. And so, when you understand the true nature of money, you know the evolution of money. You know exactly the origin of money, and that money was the invention of man, and it was to resolve a problem of logistics of communicating value in the marketplace. I wouldn't go into evolution of money, but it's something that I would encourage you to go study, and it will help you to understand that the way in the agrarian age, the way what they consider to be money at that time is different from what they consider to be money during the industrial age. And clearly, the way people made money, the wealthiest people in the agrarian age clearly were not the same wealthiest people during the industrial age, and certainly not the same wealthiest set of people exist now in the information and intelligence age. What I suggest, therefore, is that you now also have to evolve to understand the machinery for creating wealth will vary from one generation, from one era to another. And that's pretty much what financial intelligence does for you. All right. The next important thing you must understand in terms of financial intelligence, what financial intelligence does for you is that it gives you understanding of the vehicles of wealth creation. And we're going to touch on that when we begin to speak on financial planning. And listen to me carefully. The most successful people, the wealthiest people, are not necessarily the most intelligent. They just embrace the right vehicle. I'll repeat that again. The most successful, the wealthiest set of people on planet Earth today are not essentially the most intelligent. They're actually just smart enough to recognize the vehicle that will transport them from where they are right now to where they desire to be. So the choice of your vehicle is what will determine ultimately how early or late you arrive at the wealthy place. So if you are broke, it is not because you are not smart, it's simply because you are choosing the wrong vehicle. And we're going to be touching on that much, much later. And of course, understanding financial intelligence is about interpreting financial statements and making quality decisions. I've said this time and again. I was in the UK a few years ago where I was teaching there was a Europe Women Conference. And I was sharing with them how that the quality of your financial destiny cannot be better than the quality of your financial decisions. And I told them specifically, and I'm repeating it here right now, the quality of your financial decisions cannot be better than the quality of your financial education. And so a lot of people work so much for money, but learn little or nothing about money. And that's why I congratulate those of you who joined me on this particular call, and those of you who will be watching this video later on. So financial intelligence impacts on your interpretation of financial statements, and it also impacts on the quality of your financial decisions. All right. So that is the first leg if you must create wealth. That's the A part. So let's move on to the B part, which is financial planning. And I'm hoping I'll be able to finish this right now. I'll go into financial planning next week. I want you to go think about the things we've shared, and I'm going to be giving you some very powerful strategies that will help you draw up very simple plan, but actionable plan for your finances next week. You don't want to miss it. So many of the things that we have taught over the past couple of months you will now begin to connect the dots as we progress, because we're gradually winding down on this series of lecture. Within the next 1 or 2 months, I'm sure we should be done on this particular series of lecture. Probably we'll just restart again for those who will just be getting to know about us. All right, so next week, we'll take it a step further and we'll look and dive deeper into financial planning as a means to creating wealth. I hope you've drawn value. If you have further any questions, please feel free to drop your question. If you don't have any questions, that means we'll see you again next week. Next week, Friday, same time, 7 p.m. West African time, 2 p.m.